In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, James and I, my brother James, we are going to talk Ace Bailey versus Tre Johnson. And the question is Ace Bailey a lock at number 3? And can Tre Johnson pass him? Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-host, who happens to be my brother James. And like I said in the open, this is Ace Bailey versus Tre Johnson. I don't know if this is going to be a debate, but we definitely have some opinions and some takes that we need to get off. But before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That is FanDuel.com. And please check out the Locked On newsletter. You can check it out at LockedOnDaily.com. It is your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox every day. Speaking of every day, we're coming at you almost every day on the Locked On Big Board YouTube channel. So if you are not subscribed, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because we have some fire coming soon. It's draft season. Like, it's about to heat up. We've been talking about the draft, this 2025 class since September. There's going to be some new listeners. Shout out to the Mavericks fans. There's going to be some new listeners.
Shout out to the Sixers fans.
The Sixers fans. A couple teams that weren't expected to be in the lottery discussions. So we've been saving some of these takes. We're going to talk about some of the, like the top wings, the top point guards, the top rim protectors. Stay tuned. Be sure to stay tuned. All right. Let's get right into this episode. So I released my Big Board 3.0 last week. I had Ace Bailey at number 3. Ace Bailey has been number 3 on my Big Board probably since the first, I don't know. I mean, Big Board 1.0, I had Ace at number 2, but Ace has probably been number 3 since maybe November. It is now March. March Madness it's right around the corner. Don't think we're going to see Ace and Dylan Harper and Rutgers too much longer. But lately, I've been really, really strongly considering moving Ace Bailey down to number 3 because Tre Johnson has been on a tear. And I have to ask myself, what does Ace Bailey do that is better than Tre Johnson? I know James and I, we had this discussion before. I still think teams are going to take Ace at number 3 because he's 6'10", and they're going to like the defensive versatility. I had an NBA scout tell me that he believes, along with some other evaluators, that they believe that Ace has the highest upside in this class if he puts it all together. But they think that it may take a while. So whoever drafts him, whichever GM selects him, may not be around unless he hits the ground running. One guy said he thinks Dylan Harper is going to end up being the better player right away because he's a guard, and nobody's going to take anybody, whether it's Harper or Bailey ahead of Cooper Flagg. But I'm starting to think that Tre Johnson should be a legitimate option at number 3. What are your thoughts on that, James?
When I introduced this, I don't know, and that was January, and I said that there were 4 guys who had a legit chance at being the 3rd pick in the draft. Some people who listened was like, what are you talking about? And you see VJ Edgecombe, he may go 3, playing well, starting to pick it up. Common Malowach, again, there's a lot of upside, a lot of intrigue. I mentioned Tre Johnson, and I mentioned Yakachunas, who I think is probably sliding. Again, I wouldn't have taken him number 3, but I have seen him very high on draft Twitter's mocks. So I've said it before. I think there's a chance. But again, you look at it, Ace is 6'10", Tre Johnson is 6'6", but I got numbers for you, Rob.
Before we get into those numbers, let's talk about Ace Bailey first. 6'10", freshman. He's averaging 18 points, 7 rebounds per game, shooting 46% from the floor, 35% from three. He's also averaging 1.2 blocks and 1 steal per game. And like I mentioned, there are some scouts and some people that believe he has the highest upside in this class if he is able to put it all together. In your opinion, why do you think that there are some people that believe in 5 years he could be the crown jewel of this 2025 NBA draft class?
Well, Ace, again, he's 6'10". He is an amazing shot maker that can remind you of some of the great wing shot makers of the past 15, 20 years, whether it be, and I'm not comparing him to these guys, but you can tell that there's been an influence of like Kobe Bryant. You can tell there's been an influence of Tracy McGrady, an influence of Kevin Durant in this game, as far as just, you know what, I'm going to raise up and I'm going to shoot and I'm going to make this shot. And I don't care how good the defense is because I am that good of a dead-eye shooter. So I get that. And, you know, again, you talk about his size, good athlete, and some defensive capabilities. I could see where somebody could say, well, you know what, because he does this, he has the most coveted skill, which is one of the most coveted skills, offensive skills. Shot making is so natural to him at 18 years old. I can work with the thin frame or the handle or the court vision or whatever you may feel like are his weaknesses. The one thing that he does well right now is probably one of the hardest things to do in the NBA, which is make shots.
Yeah, I talked to a friend of mine that's an assistant coach, and I was asking him, like, what trends, he's an assistant NBA coach, what trends do you see in the NBA that will have an impact on not only this draft class, but other draft classes? And he said skill. He said, you want to have a team where you have skill guys all over the floor, 1 through 5, if possible, but at least 1 through 4 skill guys that can put the ball on the floor, make shots, and just be a factor. And he mentioned like Boston has skill guys at every position. They have shooting at every position. And he says even at the 5, you got a guy like Horford who can sometimes make plays out of DHOs. He mentioned Cleveland. They have skill guys all over the floor. And if you take Jared Allen out and you put Evan Mobley at the 5, now you just have multiple guys, 5 guys on the floor that can put the ball on the floor, make shots, and so on. So he talked about size and skill. And when you talk about size and skill in this draft, Ace Bailey is one of the first names that comes to mind. So I do think that Ace's potential is off the charts. He's only scratching the surface of his potential. He's still going to be 18 years old on draft night. That has to account for something because we know there's guys probably 18 years old as a junior in high school right now because their parents reclassed them when they were in 2nd grade and then did it again in 7th grade or 9th grade.
Boys out here wearing deodorant in 3rd grade, man. Come on now. What's going on?
Exactly. So Ace is young for his class. So I get the appeal. You know, the concerns are the shot selection, you know, the handle, even though I don't think that's a big deal or whatever. But I can see why there are some scouts that are really, really high on Ace and his upside. But I haven't talked to anyone, an NBA scout or a coach, that said they would take him number 1 or number 2. So with that being said, is he a lock at number 3? All right, up next, James and I, we're going to talk about Tre Johnson. James has some numbers that he is ready to pull out in support of why Tre Johnson has a legitimate shot at being the number 3 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Basketball season is here, and there is no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, which is the best place for daily fantasy sports. And with Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. It is easy to use. It is available in over 30 states, and it lets you mix and match projections across different sports. When it comes to building your lineups, an example is you can say you're going to take Luka Doncic for 25 points, or 25 points or more, or you can take Jason Tatum for 8+ rebounds. It is quick and it's easy. You can set your lineups in less than 60 seconds. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, second segment. So first segment, we talked about Ace Bailey, talked about why there is so much intrigue and appeal for his long-term potential. But I think Tre Johnson could possibly pass him. Tre is having a phenomenal year. And first of all, let me just address this real fast. The Tre Johnson, Cam Thomas comparisons that I would see online are ridiculous. They are ridiculous. Tre Johnson is a very good passer. I talked about it on a past episode. But Tre Johnson, 6'6" wing. He is putting up numbers we haven't seen from a freshman. Well, I want to say the Big 12, but I keep forgetting Texas is in the SEC. But he's averaging 20 points. He's shooting 44.8% from the floor, 40% from three on 6.8 attempts per game, and 87% from the foul line. And he's getting to the foul line 4 times per game. One of the knocks was that he doesn't put a lot of pressure on the rim. Tre has had some monster performances. He had a big one against Mississippi State earlier this week in a big win, 23 points. He had the 39-point game against Arkansas. He had 32 points against Kentucky. Hopefully I didn't steal your numbers for you, James. But in your opinion, why is Tre Johnson a legitimate candidate to be the number 3 pick in the 2025 NBA draft?
First things first, first-time listeners, viewers, both. It's no secret, if it is a secret to you, I am a Tre Johnson supporter. Proud card-carrying member for about 4 years now. I saw him as a sophomore, texted my brother Raf. I was like, yo, I got this sophomore at Lake Highlands. He's an NBA player soon. And here we are today, 2025, talking about Tre Johnson. So let's just say the things that people, scouts, fans, analysts love about Ace Bailey. Let me give you some numbers on Tre Johnson. Now, my screen a little small, but we'll figure this out. All right, you mentioned points per game. Tre Johnson's at 20. Ace is at 18.1. For the calculator crew, effective field goal percentage, Tre Johnson, 53%. Ace Bailey, 52%. That's, marginal. True shooting percentage, 57.6 for Tre Johnson, 54% for Ace Bailey. All right.
All right, I want to add something.
Go ahead.
Tre Johnson is the number 1A, 1B, 1C, and number 2 option for Texas. He is the main guy on the scouting report. And depending on the matchup, I don't know if Ace is the number 1 guy. And I'm being generous here. I don't think he's the number 1 guy on Rutgers' scouting report. You want to stop Dylan Harper first, then Ace. Tre is drawing the best defender every game. And in the tougher conference, team has a better record.
And on top of the shooting, the shooting percentages favor Tre Johnson. And as tough of a shot maker that Ace Bailey is, Tre Johnson's he's shooting, what you said, 40% from 3. A lot of these are off the dribble, a lot of step backs, a lot of deep catch and shoot threes, a lot of pat, shoot the ball threes. So he's a high volume shooter. And I just pointed out he's been more efficient in a tougher role, considering that he's the number 1 and number 2 option on the scouting report, and he's the better playmaker. Defensive numbers. On average, Tre Johnson is giving up 8.5 points per game compared to Ace Bailey, 6.3. True shooting percentage for players defended by Tre Johnson is 49.7, and Ace Bailey is 45.5. So again, the argument is the taller guy is the better defender. That isn't really an argument, but that's not saying that Tre Johnson is some cone. He is defending at a decent enough level, especially with the scoring load that he has to maintain just for Texas to be in the game. Now, if we go down to the next level and we talk about like play types, all right. So for the play types, Ralph, I got something for you. In transition, Tre Johnson, 65%. Ace Bailey, 58%. Again, according to Synergy. What would you say is Ace Bailey's best play type? What is his go-to? Isolation? I got that for you too.
I would
All
say
right.
spot up.
45% effective field goal percentage for Tre Johnson in isolation compared to 39% for Ace Bailey. And again, isolation numbers are very similar. 18% of all Ace Bailey's plays are isolation. 15% of all Tre Johnson's plays are isolation. Pick and roll ball handler. I mean, that's Tre Johnson. He has a better ball handle, right? 51% effective field goal percentage, 47%. Spot up shooting. This is where it gets really close. Ace Bailey is a 49% shooter in spot ups compared to Tre Johnson. But again, we're talking about opportunities. One guy is playing with probably number 2 pick, another guy is playing with G League, maybe, two-way guys if it all works out. But the fact of the matter is, Tre Johnson, there is a legit argument as far as just offensive output, offensive efficiency, and really even offensive projection that you can make the argument that he is just as good as Ace Bailey. And as far as like who is going to project to be a really good high level starter, maybe all-star of the two scoring freshmen.
Yeah, I think Tre is better offensively. I think he's obviously the number support. He's more efficient. He's a better passer. And again, he is the most underrated passer in this class. The whole black hole doesn't pass narrative, I think that is so lazy. Just watch his passes. And one of the things I did, and I have the luxury of having Synergy, is I went on there. I put in all his assists, and I just watched every pass he's made this season. Every pass that has led to an assist. I see a wide variety of passes, hook passes, skip passes, flashy passes, passing the ball ahead in transition, getting downhill, making reads, drawing two defenders, knowing how to extend the play when he's being trapped and find the guy. He's throwing lobs. I just think that he is such an underrated passer. And with that being said, I'm going offensively, Tre. Defensively, going Ace just because there's more positional versatility. There's the weak side shot blocking, and the statistics are better. Obviously, Ace is a better rebounder, and I think he's done good on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
But if I needed to choose, I'm torn. At first, I thought you had 1, 2, 3. Those 3 were locked, and then 4, 5, 6. I felt like that was between VJ, Tre, and in my opinion, Molly Wouch. And now I think I have to say it is 1, 2, 3 with Tre and Ace in that mix. I think it could be situational, but I think the gap is definitely closing. Rutgers season has just been an absolute disaster. I mean, they got beat by like 29 points a couple of days ago. Now, I didn't think that they were going to be a tournament team. College basketball was so old. I mean, Auburn's average age is like 23 or something like that. And so
it was like just as old as I don't know if that was accurate or not. I might have got sin-tailed or something, but they said they might be older than like the Thunder.
It was like
the Wizards or somebody.
A year off from the Thunder. But you got to figure I can't think of the guy's name. Homie with 3 names. He's 25.
Yeah.
So I think Chet is 21 maybe?
Right.
Something like that. All right, last segment, we are going to talk about why Ace Bailey could fall to number 4, which Tre Johnson can move up to number 3. We're going to talk about why it could possibly happen. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you are looking for a bigger payout, You can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. So right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, last segment. So I'm going to let you go first. Let's say draft night, Adam Silver announces the third pick, and he says whoever selects Tre Johnson at number 3. In your opinion, what made the team go that route instead of Ace Bailey?
I think a team may go that route. And again, I'm not saying that they will, but they could. But a team might go that route because they value the offensive versatility that Tre Johnson has more than what the offensive versatility that Ace Bailey may have. And again, you look at, I brought up the numbers. And one of the things that I didn't get to mention in the second segment is that 20% of Tre Johnson's plays are in pick and roll versus 8% of Ace's plays are in pick and roll. But again, you can get better at it. But today's NBA, pace, space, it's a lot of pick and roll action. And Tre Johnson in pick and roll, even though I think he has a lot to improve upon, or at least just as far as, different reads, he's already more advanced at that right now at this current stage than Ace Bailey is. So now you're talking about somebody who can score and make plays. And I feel like the same off the ball actions that you get with Ace Bailey, you're going to get those with Tre Johnson, who, again, should be on par with him as far as scoring the ball at the next level. But again, a team may look at the 6'10" and they say, you know what? You can't teach height. So I said it before. I said it in January. It's almost the middle of March now. I think Tre Johnson should be looked at number 3 because dude is just a player. And he still has a level of playmaking that we haven't really seen. He's starting to do it. He's starting to get downhill. But there's still another level of playmaking that I think he will get in NBA as far as just like playing with better players, not being 1A and 1B on the scouting report at such a young age.
What are your thoughts on this? I've heard some people say that Ace is Michael Porter Jr. with a little bit more juice. Best case scenario.
Okay.
Now, that's totally different than the T-Max. I don't think it's KD. Everybody is, anytime you're a wing and you can handle a little bit and you guys.
And you're 6'10", you're going to be KD, son.
Or even you're going to get the Paul George comparisons and so on. And I was listening to some podcasts, even just some people around the league talk about Paul George. And one of the things that I've never thought about it, because I've always just thought he was so gifted, was, Paul settles a lot. The last few years, Paul's not getting to the rim. Paul's going to settle for his step back jumper. He's going to settle for jumpers. And there was one scout that I spoke to at a Mavs game. We were just talking, not even draft. And he mentioned that the Clippers were geniuses for not giving him that contract. But it wasn't about like the injuries or the money. He felt like there were times where Paul may have had 20 really good games out the year, and he felt like the rest of the games he kind of stalled their offense in a sense because you knew what he was doing. He was predictable. You knew that he was going to settle for jumpers. So with that being said, I've heard Michael Porter Jr. That's kind of like the one. I feel like the expectations have been a little bit lower as the season has gone on. He's gone.
I said MPJ from the jump, though, Rob.
You did, but I've seen it went from T-Mac to KD to MPJ. Now, Tre Johnson, what are your thoughts about this comparison? I said all that to say this. I've heard someone say they think Tre Johnson could be Devin Booker.
That's interesting. Same size, about the same level of athlete where we're not like out of this world Anthony Edwards, but we're a good athlete, functional athlete. Post game, you see that Devin Booker has emerged from a catch and shoot guy to a get the ball, get to my spots, I get foul guy. And, under Earl Watson, who basically tried to turn him into James Harden, he became a playmaker. And you see now that they're not starting Tyus anymore. He's basically the point guard for a team that can't play any defense. That's not what this is about. But
I want to ask something real fast.
Go ahead.
When everyone thinks about Devin Booker, they think of, a guy that can score and can shoot. He's averaging 7 assists per game this year.
Yeah, that year where they were terrible, and Earl Watson was like, "Yo, go play. We need you to. This is what 2018. Man, Devin Booker is so young and so old at the same time. I feel like he's been in the league for like 15 years, and he's like 27. I think 28.
He's 28.
He's 28. But anyway, when he was like 20, I think this is crazy. That mirrored those James Harden years where he was MVP candidate, averaging 30, 35, 36, whatever. And Earl Watson was like, yo, go play point. And like, you can see that year of development is still like pulling returns almost 8 years later.
It's crazy. He's 28 and he's like on year 10.
Dude, he's got to be on his third max, which is right. But anyway, I like that comparison. I've also seen Tyler Hero as well. And, Tyler Hero was, I believe, a first-time All-Star this last year. I think he's shooting like 40% from three. I think Tre's a bit bigger, like naturally bigger than Tyler Hero. I never want to see Tyler Hero throw a punch again, man. It's an off-season workout. It has nothing to do with Amen Thompson. I just remember those punches was just loopy, but I think Tre Johnson is like naturally bigger. But again, if comparing guys to, multiple time All-Stars at this age is always the easy thing to do, but it's also tough. But if he's a Tyler Hero type player, where again, now that Jimmy's gone, they run everything through Tyler Hero, and he's the de facto playmaker. Like, I think that's a good comparison for Tre Johnson too.
Yeah, because even Hero's averaging 6 assists per game this year. And if you do the splits since the All-Star break, it's 7 assists per game. And when you think of Hero and you think of Booker, most people, they think of shooters and scorers. You don't think of playmakers. And their passing it's just improved so much over the years that they're very underrated. And I can make a case and say, I think, even though both guys went to Kentucky, so they may have been held back a little bit, I think based off of what I've seen in college, Tre Johnson is the better playmaker between Booker and Hero. Based on, obviously he's had a much bigger opportunity and role to showcase his game. But if they're 5 and 6 assists per game guys, I don't see why Tre Johnson cannot be a 5 assist guy.
And add to that, Tyler Hero as a good ball handler, probably on a better team, a secondary playmaker. He's getting to the line this season, a career high 4 attempts per game. We know Devin Booker can get to the line, and that's not even without being a great athlete. I know a lot of people like to see, I've said it before, I don't think Tre Johnson has the best first step, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to draw fouls. And you see that he's starting to pick it up and get to the foul line. But I say that to say this to your comparison to Devin Booker. He's routinely at 6 free throw attempts per game in his prime. You know what I'm saying? So, it's not necessarily all about Tre not having the greatest first step, but as you learn how to manipulate defenses, again, I mentioned in the stats that I brought up in a second, Tre Johnson has post game. There's value in the post game, especially when you're a pick and roll guard and a shooter. You can get switches. So Tre's gonna be able to, you know what I'm saying? You get a 6'2" guy on him. He's gonna be able to pump fake, draw fouls. So I like the Booker comparison. I like Tyler Hero comparisons too. Again, first time listeners, like I said, this kid was an NBA player when, he had a shadow of a mustache in 10th grade. So I think dude is legit.
What about this comparison? I've had someone throw out 2024-25 Norm Powell as a comparison for Tre.
Nah, Norm Powell as a shooter is ridiculous. Norm is not passing the ball though. Even in this peak year at 32, which is crazy, Norm isn't a playmaker. I think Norm is a catch and shoot guy. At one point, he was shooting 50% from the 3-point line. He's really good in transition as far as pulling up for threes, but I think Tre has more off the dribble. You know what I'm saying? Now, if he scales down to a Norman Powell level, just depending on what translates, I get it. But I think more off the bounce, at least at that same age, I like Tre Johnson more.
And the scout made the comparison, and I say it was probably before, Tre really kind of picked it up with the passing. I think the passing for Tre it's been more on display later on in the season as he's getting downhill a little bit more and he's having more reps with the ball. But this particular scout who actually watched him live, like he was at a Mavericks game, but he had just came from watching UT play in Austin. And he thought Norm Powell, but he mentioned that Tre is not the athlete Norm Powell is. And Norm is like a crazy athlete. If you go back and look, his game just isn't based off of athleticism. But this particular scout mentioned he didn't think Tre was like a really like good ball handler, but he felt like with Norm is a guy that was averaging, I don't know what it is now, but he's averaging like 25 points per game. He's probably taking 10 dribbles a game. And he felt like Tre was the type of scorer that could score 20 points and get buckets without taking a lot of dribbles, doesn't need to like dance. He just knows how to get to where he needs to go. And so that was a comparison. I don't necessarily see it, but I do think that at the minimum, Tre could play that role as a shooter, catch and shoot guy, an elite catch and shoot guy that can, attack or close out. But I think he's a much better playmaker than Norm has been able to show. And you have to add been able to show because, man, clearly Norm was capable of these numbers before. He just finally got the opportunity to show it.
I agree. And I think the biggest difference, though, is, Tre is 6'6", Norman Powell is a 6'3", whatever, 6'3" bucket, and that 3 inches of height, I don't have the wingspan numbers in front of me, but that makes a difference as far as like, what you are. And I think he's more of a ball handler, playmaker than Norman Powell. But even if I think that Tre is so talented and so versatile that if in 8 years he's not Devin Booker, he's not Tyler Hero, he can be Norman Powell. And that's like not a slight at Norman Powell. He's just that good of a shooter.
All right, quick hitters for you. How high can Tre go in the draft?
I think 3 would be high. I had him at 6 on my last big board. But like I said, I think 3 through 6 is up for debate. I've said it for some time now. But I think he can go high as 3. He can go high as 4, 5, but I don't think he falls past 6. I think a team is going to decide, do I like VJ Edgecombe more or do I like Tre Johnson more?
I think he can go high. I think he can go high as 3. How low can Ace go?
I don't think Ace falls past 4. Not being able to shoot as well as he does, and at 6'10" and his age, no team is gonna pass that up. Because even if he's a role player, like I said, he's Michael Porter Jr. And Michael Porter Jr. is making big money. Michael Porter Jr. a few nights a year is going to get you 30 and 10 and hit some crazy shots. He's going to cut and he's going to dunk. And I think those are all things that Ace Bailey can do at the next level.
All right. This will be real quick. One name only. Don't have to explain why. I'm on Tankathon. I'm going to hit Sim Lottery. The Bulls got the first pick. The 76ers pick number 2. And the Washington Wizards have the 3rd pick. If you are the GM of the Washington Wizards, you got the 3rd pick. Which direction are you going? Ace Bailey or Tre Johnson?
I'm going Tre Johnson.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. This was a fun one. We're going to do more exercises like this as we get closer to the draft. I'm already thinking of Tre Johnson versus VJ Edgecombe. Which direction would you go in? And maybe we'll go on Tankathon, hit Sim, and make the choice based off of the team that is selecting. But once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. And we are out of here.